Lismore called Jeff Hanna, but the cabinets he makes are a bit special. Jeff's most recent creation is called the Hanna Cabinet. It took him 6 years to make. It has $10,000 worth of ebony in it alone. 43 timbers and veneers, 17 types of stone, 4 types of shell, and 23 carat gold leaf. It's got 18 doors and 140 drawers in it. And like all of Jeff's creations, it's full of secrets. Cabinet doors that open onto more little doors and drawers. And there are secret compartments that are only known to Jeff and whoever buys this work of art. The Hanna Cabinet is worth more than $1 million, and its beauty has actually been known to make people cry. Jeff's been all over Europe, where he's been allowed to pull out all the drawers from the desk of Marie Antoinette inside the Louvre. He's a rare and special craftsman. Jeff Hanna, good morning.
How are you, Richard?
I'm well, sir. You live and work in Lismore. Set the scene. Tell me what your workshop's like. What happens when you walk in there? What do you see?
Well, the workshop's only very small. I started in 1973 as a home industry, and it's more just like a garage built on the side of our house, and it's a Queenslander-style house, a four-bedroom home, and so it takes up underneath it, can still take 2 cars and most of the workshop.
So this is a shed hobby that's gone completely out of control by the set.
Well, look, you don't need a big space to make something. I mean, I keep it all tidy and neat, and because I find if you've got a bigger space, you have more stuff laying around.
You're working with all these exquisite timbers, and some of them must be very aromatic. What does it smell like in your workshop?
Yeah, well, it's got a lot of different smells. It can be from varnish to old hide glue, all the smell of wood, as you said, whatever planing or sanding at the time. So although it gets dusty, it's all kept clean, and if it has a lot of different odours that most of the time I don't even smell, unless someone else brings me attention to it, You're
used to it. How many tools have you got in there? I mean, you'd have more than your average, more than just a spanner set and a couple of hand drills, would you?
Yeah, there's a fair few hand tools, chisels and planes of different lengths for playing on different jobs, whether you're doing a joint in a tabletop or you're cutting a bit of end grain, and a lot of carving chisels, but in machinery too, because no one will pay you to be slow. So if you have modern equipment that can help you dress timber properly, well, you got to do it, and you got to have it.
What comes first when you're building one of these exquisite cabinets? Is it a piece of wood? What happens? Where does it start?
You have the idea. You have the idea in your head, and this cabinet, the one now, the Hanna Cabinet, is a progression. This is the 4th in this series of cabinets, and it'll be the last because I can't go any bigger because I can't physically move it and handle it. It's just the sections are too big, so I'll have to go back the other way and make something small now.
It's so beautiful. I mean, it's full of all this fine marquetry work, inlaid images. It's so finely detailed and exquisite, Jeff.
Well, once you've got the idea, then, and that's just a sketch on paper, and once I'm happy with a sketch, then I hand draw it full size. See, once you draw it full size and I've got the exact measurements of it, then I can take all the dimensions in back onto the wood to mark it out and start making it. But the cabinet today is a progression over 4 cabinets, which just kept getting bigger because you can see what you have done and you can see where you can still go. I can add more content into it and more stone, and so at the moment, it's 8 foot long, 8 foot high, and 30 inches deep, and it probably weighs. It hadn't been weighed yet, but it'll be weighed soon. Probably weighs 1 3/4 ton.
1 3/4 ton. It seems to me, looking at it, there's part of the fascination with it, and it seems like you enjoy showing it to people. Is you like opening the doors, the small panels, and pulling out some of the drawers, and behind the drawers there are some hidden drawers and other things inside that, with fine work on all of them. It seems like it keeps the best of itself to itself, Jeff.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to it. There's a lot to the cabinet, especially when you get into the inner part of it, where all the secret compartments are, because there's secret compartments hidden behind secret compartments, but you've got to be able to access them and get them out. And, of course, with any secret compartment in something, it's still got to be easy to get to. Like, it's got to be accessible. Like, no screwdriver, no hammer. It's just going to be easy to be able to activate. And that's the hardest, is working out those devices. But of course the thing is too, there you love it so much that you want to tell everybody where they are too.
Can you paint me a big picture of what this cabinet looks like on the outside when we're looking at the Hanna cabinet on the outside?
Yeah, it starts off with 8 supporting legs, and they're made out of a solid Brazilian mahogany, 5 inches square. And then they're all cut and shaped. Then they're veneered, and then they're carved, and then all the gold work, all the preparation for the gold work was done at an early stage, because it's too much foundation work to do when the cabinet's made. So I did a lot of that while the legs were still separate. And then once you got the leg and the plinth base made, then you move up to the bottom set of mouldings. Then your 3 carcasses that sit on top of it. Then your pediment comes down, which locks in 6 ebony columns. And so once you got that, then you put the doors on it and fit out all the drawers. And then you keep moving then into the next stage, because when you open this door, you got another door. When you open that door, you got another 2 doors. And you open those 2 doors, you got another door. So each stage you keep working out and moving into the next stage and then create that.
It's kind of like a mixture of styles too, classic furniture styles from different periods, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, it's typical European. It's probably a little bit Flemish. It's not it's not copied off anyone else's piece of furniture, but there's ideas taken from different centuries and things like that put it all together, you know. And it's and by having a cabinet with doors and drawers in it, I can put more content in it, because the content you see in this cabinet and the previous one or the one before that even, because you've got both sides of the door to work on, you can put more work in it. If you work on one table, well, you only can do the tabletop. So here it gives you a bit of a license to really go for it.
It seems to me like a beautiful and incredibly intricate and complex cabinet, like the ones you make. They're a bit like the human mind. I mean, you know, you've got this beautiful front to it, and that's the bit that we showed of ourselves to the world. And then there's the secret parts, the hidden parts, the bits that you find only after you know it for a while. And there's the bits that no one will even really know about it except you, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, where some of them are hidden, I've even forgot one myself. then I've thought of it again, but you do forget.
How do you access secret compartments most of the time? Is it a secret button somewhere, or is it a spring latch you need to push against the panel?
Yeah, spring-loaded. Some are worked with a magnet, and just different locking systems that clip, and you've got to know where to press to be able to pull it out, you know. And of course, with a secret compartment, as soon as if you there's some I show off. I do show people because it's good to do it. But if I didn't show them, it'd be hard for them to find it. But when you do show someone, they think, oh, I would have found that. But they only can say that after the event.
So it's a delightful thing. So there's a bit of a Japanese mindset there too, surely, isn't there? I mean, that's that idea of hidden boxes within boxes, a piece of furniture that's a puzzle as much as it is a glorious public bit of furniture. Yeah,
well, there's a drawer there, because mainly these cabinets were built for collectors. So if you collect something, there's a drawer there for you, you know. But of course, and the one in Antwerp, it's used to house their documents of their company. And also to show visitors to the city and like business visitors that they have there, you know. But this one's more subdued on the outside, and just gets a little bit deeper in colour as you go in when you get into the parrots and the lorikeets and all that inside it, which are in their colours, you know.
Tell me about that process of these inlaid images you've got into the cabinets of birds, of the flora and fauna of Australia.
If I can draw off real life, I do. I get grass or whatever grass I'm going to do, and then I get the grass and I draw it off what I see. And then when I do that, when I've got that bit of grass, I also pick the colours of the wood to match it, so I can keep it a bit authentic. So when you do look at it botanically, it's reasonably accurate, you know. So that helps get the drawing done, and And then if there's a bird I don't know or haven't got a photo of myself, well, then I just go through all the research books and put them all together, and then I draw a drawing off multiple images to try and put it together, you know. And I mean, the eagle that's coming in for landing in the cabinet, which is hidden up under one of the drawers, you only see that if you pull the top drawer out. It took 8 hours to draw it, just to get it right. And then once I do that, well, then it's ready to take a tracing off that and go and trace out all the bits of wood. Then every individual bit of wood then's in turn burnt in hot sand to scorch it to give you that shading effect. So the feathers do look like they're layered, or it does look like you've got a fold in the leaf. And it's just where you burn it and how you do the grain of it, you know.
Painstaking work. Master craftsman Jeff Hannah is my guest this morning. Jeff's a cabinet maker, a master artisan who lives in Lismore. His latest creation is the Hannah Cabinet, which took him 6 years to make. And if it's all right with you, Jeff, we'll put some images of it on our website as well. So if you like, you can go and have a look at it. Lismore likes to claim you as one of their own, Jeff. You've lived there for many years. Were you born in Lismore?
No, I was born in Corrockeye, but I've lived in the Northern Rivers all my life. We've moved around a bit on farms and things like that, but I started off when I was young at Busby's Flat, inland from Casino. I went to school out there.
Did you grow up amongst wood and timber and wood craftsmanship all your life?
Yeah, Dad was a sleeper cutter and a girder cutter when he was young, and I could still see Mum and Dad cutting down a tree and cutting it to length to make girders for the railway and sleepers. Still see him doing that. You know, of course, that was done with an axe, a string line, a crosscut saw and wedges. It was just all manual hard labour. And he damn well worked hard to get anywhere. Then he went on a farm for a while. Then he came back to sleeper cutting, and then he worked in a local sawmill. So I've always been tied up with wood all the time. You know, I could still smell different timbers getting cut from that early age because we lived in a mill house as well.
What you do is very different from cutting sleepers and girders. Tell me how you got started doing the work you do, and how you evolved into an artisan.
Well, I was always liked muck around with wood because being at the sawmill, I used to go up and bring scraps home and nail them together and muck around like that. And then when we moved onto a farm, Dad would bring a fridge crate home for me. In the old days, fridges used to come in wooden crates. And he'd bring that crate home in the back of an old Prefect truck, and I just thought that was Christmas, that crate, I used to take the nails out of it and straighten them and reuse them and make things out of it. And
like what? What would you make?
Oh, boats, or mainly boats in those days I can remember. I think there's still one surviving in a mate's shed out there at Currawell still today.
Tell me about what you found in a biscuit tin when you were 17.
I was at home, and I think I was 17, and we're sitting home watching TV there, because the story is why I'm telling it is why the cabinet's been named the Hannah Cabinet. But yeah, I was there watching TV because TV just come out. We just bought our first TV as well, and anyway, I was sitting there and I was looking through this tin. And I come across these adoption papers, and I was looking at it. It's funny having adoption papers here. And as I kept reading it, looking at it, I realised it was mine.
Your parents hadn't told you were adopted until that moment?
No, I found out by finding the paper.
So what did you do?
Well, I got the shock of my life. I just went cold. I started crying, and I said to Mum, "Oh, what's this?" And she said, I could still hear her saying it, "But you're happy, aren't you, love?" And I said, "Oh God, yeah, of course I'm happy, and I'm always happy." And of course I've never spoken since that day. I never ever spoke to Mum about it, or they never spoke to me about it either. It was just something left alone, and I didn't want to bring it up again because I didn't want to make Mum or Dad upset over it. Because I was happy. I mean, I had the best upbringing and the best mother and father they'd ever had.
You hear stories sometimes of people who adopt kids, and they tell themselves that one day we'll tell our son or daughter, but that day it's never quite the right moment. The day never quite comes, and then it's too late, isn't it? Yeah,
well, of course, Mum and Dad had health issues over the time too, and so did my brother. Richie was a little Down fellow when he was born, and a delightful little kid, you know.
This is your brother?
Yeah. And he died at 41 with a stroke. And he, like, idolised me, you know, and him, and and because of that love in that family we had, and then I got met Rhonda, and then I remember when she'd come over to our place and I'd go away with Rhonda downtown, Richie started crying and telling me to come back. He didn't like me going away because Rhonda was a threat, you know. And, of course, they become the best of friends, and Rhonda loved him so much, and the same thing, you know. And, of course, having said that, then, of course, we had 2 children, Emret and Stuart, and then they got married, and then we've got 4 little grandkids, so that Hannah Cabinet's named after my family. The love of that family is why, because for years I wanted a word, and everywhere I went I asked, what's the word that would mean for the love of a family? There must be some word, because that word I was listening to, trying to get, was going to name this last cabinet. And at the end of the day, I couldn't come up with anything. Like someone to suggest something, but it didn't rhyme or it didn't work. And we did think of calling it the Hannah Cabinet, but thought it might have been a bit conceited. And but as we thought about it longer, I thought, no, look, it's the word I was looking for. It fits because it's not named after me; it's named after them.
Any man who works for 6 years on something is entitled to put his name on it. I think it's like an artist signing his painting. I think you're well within your rights there, Jeff. I think that's a lovely thing, and it's a beautiful story. Nonetheless, have you ever been tempted to track down your birth mother or father?
No, I thought I'd never do it. Like I know other people who have done it, and the rejection. And if I did track someone down and I got rejected, I don't know how I'd handle it. But I have went to Docs and got the paper to get my pre-adoptive name. But I haven't filled the paper in yet, so I'm 61 now, or nearly 61, but it's taken a long time.
Is it a bit like you've had a lovely life, and is it a bit like you're worried you might unpick the thread of your life or something?
Yeah.
Is that a part of it?
I'd say so, mate, yeah.
So then, how do you actually get your start? Where do you go from? I mean, making boats out of fridge boxes is one thing. Making these exquisite cabinets is another. How did you develop that trade, Jeff?
Well, I came to Lismore. We came to Lismore to live then. And I don't know whether that was in Dad and Mum's mind when we moved off the farms, whether Jeffrey would need a job one day or something. And Dad went off the farm. We moved into town, and I went to high school in Lismore for 5 months, I think. And I heard that Brown Jolly was New South Wales' largest country home furnishers. They had cabinet makers there and polishers, and so I went in there to see the boss, and asked the boss, was there any jobs in cabinet making? He said, look, there could be, but the bloke you'd have to speak to is overseas for 6 weeks. Come and see me when he comes home. Well, that 6 weeks bloody felt like 6 years waiting for that. And, of course, when he came back, I did get the job. I fell on my feet more or less, and I grew up with a lot of great workmen. I mean, we had that much respect for the boss of the company and the boss in the workshop. We never swore or never called him by his first name. I don't think I ever did. Just grew up in that kind of manner, And we learnt the trade as a cabinet maker, and then I was the last cabinet maker one of the last apprentices to go through. And of course, TV was just coming along, and in that establishment, I mean, if they wanted someone to crawl under a house to put the licorice under at the time, they'd get me, because I was a lot smaller then. And then they would go out hanging curtains because we had a soft furnishing department, and then carpet hit the scene pretty good, so the doors had to be cut off. When the carpet went down, the doors went over, so we'd go and do that. So I grew up with a lot of different schools, and been with the polishing department, and then there's an old piano restorer there, so I'd work on pianolas and pianolas as well. And then we had an upholsterer. So I grew up with that foundation, which was certainly good for me because it put me in an area where I learned a bit of everything. And, of course, now it's paid off because, if we start something in the workshop, it starts and finishes there.
Tell me about the pleasure in the work for you. Where does it come from? And what's your state of mind when you're happily working away at something, Jeff?
Well, of course, when I do start any job, it's definitely a total commitment. Once I get into it, that's it. I start. Look, if the tap leaks, I really don't want to know about it, or something like that. Even though I do it, but because when you work on a piece, or this last bit, it's 6.5 years. Well, if you let too much get in your road, I'll never finish it. I'll never get there. And of course, then you go through a different stage where you're frightened to die before you finish it, because you wouldn't want someone to put a flower in the wrong place or something like that.
So it's an obsessive commitment then.
Oh yeah.
So are you, when you're working, doing this exquisite work, and you're not always having a good day, I'm assuming as well, and there'll be good days, mostly good days, but the odd bad day as well. Now, on a good day, are you kind of, I don't know, happily zoned out? Are you in another world as you're working away on these exquisite bits of furniture, Jeff?
Well, I must be, because Rhonda reckons she talks to me and I don't hear her. But once I'm into it, I'm happy to keep it going. But I'm happy to go to work all the time. I just love being in the workshop. Because it's at home. I live there, and I live it and breathe it. I just love it. And of course, I think whatever you do in life, if you love it, it'll be a lot easier on you, and it'll show in what you do, I feel. And of course, having the cabinet, when you take the cabinet to anywhere to show, when you have school kids that come in, even little kids will sit down on the floor and laugh because they see what goes on when you're showing it off, and they're clapping and even even men will cry when they see it, and it's just a great feeling. That they can come in and see something and are so happy. They go out so excited because they've seen something. Well, that makes me happy. And it certainly fires me on to do more,
There's more to furniture than an Allen key and a flat pack. Jeff, of course, you mentioned your wife, Rhonda. Tell me how you met Rhonda and the effect she's had on your life and your work.
Yeah, I think I was 16 when I met Rhonda. She was 13. And she come to see the girl that lives next door, our neighbour's daughter. And she was friends with her. That's how we kind of met. So we've been married 40 years the other day. So, she's been a great help to me because she's definitely the backs-up of the family, I tell you. Like in the early days, she used to be in the workshop working and standing up with me and helping, and when the kids were in playpens in the workshop, Now she helps design things out, like saying this is going to go there or what's going to go here or what colour should we pick for this. And so she has a great input in there, But she's definitely the organiser and does all the accounts for the business and that. So, yeah, couldn't do without her.
Many people listening to this would be thinking, God, what a lucky bugger. He meets the girl of his dreams and his perfect job before he's even 20. How about that?
Yeah.
You think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty good. I keep telling her how lucky she is.
It's a lovely story. Jeff, from the start of your working life, you've been collecting books. Tell me about these books that help you.
Well, going back in the 60s and 70s, we'd have bookshops, but then we'd come to Brisbane and see what years out of here, like even today, the range is pretty good. And I said, I'd come up in, I'd walk around all the bookshops and I'd just look for anything with a furniture book and take it home. And of course now we've got a whole library of different things, that get in and that. But it all started from just, collecting all around the country wherever I'd go. And I still do it. Come up here and look through any second-hand bookshops and to see what furniture books are available, what artist books. And of course you look through them and you get ideas and inspiration, what has been done,
You're listening to Conversations with Richard Fidler on ABC Local Radio and the World Wide Web.
cabinet maker Jeff Hanna is my guest this morning, a special and rare craftsman, one of the world's great craftsmen who creates and builds beautiful works of art, and his most recent one is called the Hanna Cabinet. Now, most of the furniture you admire, Jeff, lives in the homes and palaces of Europe. Have you been to see these for yourself?
I was awarded the Churchill Fellowship in 1980, the study to England and France. So what I asked for was, if I was awarded a Churchill Fellowship, could I look at first hand Louis XV's desk, for instance, or one of Marie Antoinette's pieces? Could I actually look at it and take a drawer out of it, you know? And
gee, that'd be hard to get permission to do, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, I went through our local members and federal members at the time, and
who is this Cabinet maker from Lismore? We know nothing of this man.
And I mean, the privileges I had were just beyond reproach, more or less. You know, like, I just had the greatest time in London and Paris in the museums. I was allowed to go into different rooms out of ours when that room might have been shut off today. So I'd go in there and look at what I wanted to have a look at it. And I remember taking the drawer out of Louis XIV, I think it was, coin cabinet, a corner cabinet. I took all the drawers out and put them on the ground so I could actually look at the internal part of it.
And where was that?
That was in the Louvre. And I looked at it because, I mean, I thought I had enough. I thought I'd be able to handle how to make it if I could actually see some different construction methods they would have used that you can't look at by just looking at it, you know. And I remember putting these drawers on the ground, and there was a couple of coins missing out of the drawers as well. And I thought, oh, geez, I hope they don't think I would have touched them, you know. And but because it was coins of their children minted, which is in it, so it's a pretty important piece, you know. And also I was looking at Marie Antoinette, one of her tables, and I no sooner touched it and this alarm went off, you know. Oh, it frightened the life out of me, you know. And it was because there was no one else around in this fairly big room. Oh, and I just stood still, and because I didn't know what to expect, you know. And so I started walking to one of the doors, and as I got there, a security guard met me at the door and came in and turned the alarm off to that piece of furniture. They turned off all the alarms except for else, bar this piece that was sitting in the middle of the hall on us. Oh, mate, I thought of the guillotine, I tell you. I was so worried about it.
Sounds like a scene from To Catch a Thief, actually. You know, you'd expect these giant Get Smart doors to come down, iron doors and the like. But what do you look for when you're going through Marie Antoinette's knicker drawers, whatever that is? What are you looking for when you?
Well, probably how they constructed it. Now it's not such a mystery because that was in 1980, so I was pretty young then, and what we did make when I was working, we would make like a dressing table that might have to fit in a different area. But to see furniture that I was going to see, like made between 1650 and 1885 or something, was a period I wanted to study. I mean, even people today don't even see that unless they've been to a museum. I mean, because if you just walk around town, you don't see the importance, or like as much important furniture would you see in these museums. So it was all new to me to go and actually see this, but having done that has put me in a different way to think and what you can do. And of course, a couple of years ago, I took 5 students and their partners to Europe for a study tour. So we went back over some of the grounds that I went there, and we went to the Victoria and Albert Museum, and the boss of the museum was with us, and she came around the day, and we had workers who were retired. They got back off retirement when I was there in 1980 to come around with our group to actually talk about it and take the Ford Noir cabinet drawers out to show the people and the students with me. So we had the privileges of life, you know.
When you see these masterful cabinets made 200 years ago, do you feel like you know the mind of the artisan who made them? Do you recognise the work that's being done and, I know his work, I know this man?
Yeah, well, of course, in those days too, like if the cabinet maker who put his name to it possibly wouldn't have done it all. He'd have had these carvers who would have carved it. The gilders would have done the gilding and the gold plating if it was ormolu, and then you would have a caster and a modeller. Whereas today, after I've seen all that work, if it starts in the workshop, it starts by me and finishes there. And I take in all those mediums. And so it's definitely a slog because, you have to do everything yourself, But looking at things that Andre Charles Bull, it would have been good to be able to probably be in his workshop in those days, because one of the things they probably had in those days was someone to finance their piece they're making. I mean, they had bishops, kings and tax collectors who would have paid to have it done, where today, I mean, we finance everything ourselves from start to finish. We only finance that by a previous sale and I do teach as well, and those two actually fund the next job.
So you don't have a patron then, as such?
Not as such, no. I make in 1986 I came home from teaching at the University at Southern Queensland, and I thought, that's it. I'm going to, in 6 months' time, as soon as I finish everything I've got to do, I'm going to start making furniture for an exhibition and have an exhibition on my own in Canberra. So the Churchill Trust let me have it in Northbourne Avenue at the time. So I went to Canberra in 1986 and had a solo exhibition and sold most of the things I made. And then out of that set me up a bit to be able to make what I wanted to make, and then I market it. So I don't make nothing that I can't live with, because if it doesn't sell, well, it can stay in the house, because the house is a bit of a showroom, But it gives me a chance to do and make what I want to make, because if you were waiting for someone to come and put an order in for the latest cabinet, you'd probably be dead and buried before you'd get a look in. So I go the other way, and I make it, and then I try and market it, which isn't that easy either.
But you have creative freedom then?
Oh, yeah, I do, yeah. Yeah, and that's worth a lot too.
Obviously not personally, but in a professional sense, do you ever feel a bit lonely, given what you're doing is I suppose, a disappearing craft? There wouldn't be anywhere near as many artisans like you in the world as there would have been 200, 300, 400 years ago. Do you ever feel like you wish you could have met and socialised with the great figures of cabinet making of years gone by?
Yeah, I do. I often do. But after getting into reading, because I've only started reading in the last 5 years, but after reading different things in history and the way they lived and the way we live now, I tell you what, it'd be nice to go back and see what they did, but I tell you what, I'd hate to live in some of the ways they had to live, eh?
These other cabinet makers you're studying, do they have a penchant for secret compartments like you? Was that a commonplace thing to make these hidden little spaces within?
Yeah, because like a lot of secret. Well, they were the first safes. You got to hide something, so you got to do it in a way that you can't find it. So yeah, it was done early on. Doing secret compartments.
Jeff Hannah is my guest in conversation. Cabinet maker, master craftsman. Jeff, another one of your great cabinets, one you're famous for, is called the Australiana cabinet. But it's European in style. What makes it Australian?
Well, I want to do something like and call it the Australiana cabinet. So I done all the flora all over it, inside and out is all Australian. I think it was 100 woods in that cabinet and 90 of them which are Australian. And I used Australian hinges, Australian locks, polish, sandpaper. All this I'm trying to do so at the end of the day I could call it the Australiana cabinet. And there was only 10 woods in it which weren't ours. I used them for colour or construction purposes. And it went around Australia. Well, not right around Australia, but it went to Perth twice. I think Sydney 4 times. Come to the Brisbane Art Gallery, Melbourne, Canberra, and all our local galleries as well. And I tried to sell that here for 7 years, like to try and keep it here, hoping it'd go in a public place somewhere. Because when you see what the public have said about it over those years, it would have been nice to keep it in a public place. And, of course, during the Olympics, a young bloke about 40 years old, walked in and seen it, and within a month it was delivered to Antwerp in Belgium.
And that's where it is now, in Belgium.
I mean, it's
The Australiana cabinet is in Belgium, in Antwerp.
it's got a world view. It's got one of the greatest homes you could ever wish for. It looks out onto the Grand Place in Old Antwerp, and I have one cabinet before the Hannah cabinet, which is the Yarralumla cabinet. I actually built that in memory of Dad. That one, and that it's basically known as the Yarralumla cabinet. Though it's in the private interest of Yarralumla.
How did it come to be there?
It had an exhibition in Sydney at the State Library, and Mrs. Hayden, the Governor General's wife at the time, went and seen it. She came there and seen the cabinet and thought that it'd be nice if the Australiana Fund would purchase the cabinet for the private interest of Yarralumla, which of course it did happen. But it's a small cabinet, and of course then we got to the Australiana cabinet, which is bigger and a lot more detailed, and now we get to the Hannah cabinet, which is
Massive,
yeah. And I mean, it'd be good to keep it here somewhere where the public could see it at certain times of the year, or be on permanent display. But doing that gets a bit beyond me to be able to reach the right people.
How did people react when they saw the Australiana cabinet?
Oh, they just the same as the one now. I mean, you get people sitting in front of it, and it's not uncommon you'll be talking to someone, they'll come up to say how good it is, and just start crying and can't get it out. Even as I said earlier, even men, when they look at it, will get choked up just saying they used to do cabinet making, or they've done it, or their father had done it beforehand, and when they see the amount of time that they can see when you look into it, they get overwhelmed with it. Because the stone gallery on top of the cabinet, it took 3.5 months just to cut the stone gallery. That all come out of petrified wood from Chinchilla, because you have some of the best petrified wood in the world that comes out of Chinchilla. So the complete gallery on top of that cabinet is all stone from Chinchilla, and then all the stone in the ebony columns and the legs is all from Chinchilla.
What do you think people are crying about? I mean, it sounds like that part of it is remembering doing a bit of woodwork with Dad. I mean, that might be part of it. But what do you think it is that brings tears to people's eyes, Jeff?
I think the probably the enormity of it and the amount of work you can see in it, because most most people don't see a piece of furniture like this is, unless you do go to a great museum, because most furniture shops or something, there's nothing that looks like this cabinet. So when they walk in and see it for the first time, I mean, they just get overwhelmed with the whole complexity of the whole thing.
You wrote a letter to one of your cabinets, didn't you?
Yeah, I had to write a letter to it. Yeah, I was always going to do one, but I probably would never have got around to it.
This is such a lovely idea. What did you do? Tell me.
Yeah, and Paul asked me to write a letter to the cabinet. So I was cornered, I had to do it, because I would have always thought it was a good idea, but I would have never have got around to doing it, even though you want to. And then when something's gone, you always say, oh, look, I should have done it. But anyway, I sat in the motel room in Antwerp and on a sheet of paper from the motel, I composed, and I'm not a letter writer, mate. I work hard to write, I tell you. But I wrote a letter, and even Rhonda said how probably easy it came, because I can't remember it all, but I just said how great it was to make you. Like you started from an idea, like the same with the cabinet now. It starts with an idea, then a drawing, and then you draw the full size out, and then you start making it. And the love that you get out of it yourself by making it, because if something I'm not happy with, I'll change it on the way if it needs to. If something goes wrong, it's always fixed before you move on. I said, and how we made the children laugh and how we made the adults cry, which was just coming out of everyday observations when the cabinet was showed off anywhere it was. The kids would be sitting down there clapping and wanting more, and you'd open up another one and they'd burst into laughter because you showed them something else, And when they thought it was nothing else to ask for, you'd produce another drawer out of it, So I wrote all this down and then signed it. Paul looked at it. I signed it, and I sealed the envelope up, and he sealed across the seal, and then I hid him on the secret compartments. So it might never ever be found.
It's almost as though these pieces have a soul. I mean, you write a letter to someone, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you think of them that way?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can hide, you can put things in cabinets, and I mean, like, there's a good chance it'll never be discovered. Like, I always remember this one in the Victorian Albert Museum. There was a cabinet there made in 1695, I think it was. And these two woodworkers wrote a letter and put it in the cabinet saying, the cabinet's finished now and the winter months has hit us, and we had a good season and we got that fat from eating turnips and drinking beer that we could hardly mount the stairs. But now we're looking for some location because the shortage of meat and too much turnips driving us from Warsburg. And so they're telling about it, you know. And of course,
everyday life.
Everyday life, yeah. And it was hidden in the cabinet, but when the cabinet was actually dismantled in 1967 for restoration purposes is when they found the letter. And it's for all to see. It's on the wall in the Victorian Albert Museum in a frame for people to see it. So it is good to have these things to look back. It's like a time capsule if it's ever found, you know, or ever opened.
Are there pieces you can't bear to get rid of? Can't bear? I mean, I know you're going to like it when you sell them, but is it very painful to wave goodbye to these pieces?
Well, even to leave the one in the art gallery, every time you walk out, you lock it up, and I come home after I showed the public, you walk out, you know, still you got to look back and have one last look. It's just like leaving one of the kids, you know.
Yeah, it's like sending the kids to boarding school, is it?
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah. Like when we brought the cabinet, when it flew it over to Antwerp, I brought it up to Brisbane and took it into customs. You know, and I was nervous then because it's just like someone's departing, you know. And so we took it into customs, the big door went up, the cabinet went in, and when that door shut, and I had absolutely no way of contacting it, I just about sank, you know. Terrible feeling of loneliness. You know, it's gone, you know, and you can't have any other contact with it until you get there, you know. But, of course, you can't finance another job unless you sell something previously. And that's why, although the one in Antwerp, and I've seen, I think 4 times since I took it over there, waxed it a couple of times and took our students to see it. So I still have contact with it. But, of course, nothing will move forward because you can't keep it, because you can't fund anything. So you have to let it go. But it's not, the feeling, as you said, well, yeah, the money's good because that helps you stay afloat. But, I mean, the loss is still terrible to see it go, you know.
The cabinet, the Hannah cabinet, is on display and it's on the market, but it's not 100% finished.
It is now. We've found the gems.
Well, tell me that story.
Well, I've been collecting, I collect rock and stone, jasper or petrified wood wherever I go for this cabinet, the last cabinet. And I collected gems here and there, and I had 10 yellow sapphires, 2 red sapphires, 2 green peridots and an oval amethyst. And a goldsmith worker, a friend of mine, set the stones in 24-carat gold to embellish the final secret drawer. And so when it came to finish the last drawer, couldn't find the gems.
Well, they were lost.
Didn't know where they were. I looked through the cabinet so many times. I thought I might have put them in a secret compartment so I'd know where they were. I got sick of looking through it because I couldn't find them. So Rhonda pulled the house apart and no, we couldn't find them. I thought, well, they could have fell in the garbage bin or something. I mean, you know, like I just had no idea where they would have been at all. Anyway, we got invited to a party one night. It was a French night. So our daughter suggested I go as Inspector Clouseau. So Rhonda went through one of the cabinets up inside looking for the gold glitter to do the Pink Panther sign on a glove. And when she got to where the gold glitter should have been, The gold glitter wasn't there, but the gems were there. So, anyway, so she came down. I was a bit stressed one day. I was trying to get this done. I was doing this for someone and had to fix this up. And she come down and she said, "Hold out your hand." I said, "I haven't got time for these mucking around at the moment." "No, hold out your hand." I said, "Look, if it gives me a shock, if it's something going to put me in and give me a shock, I tell you, I'm going to be really cranky." She said, "Oh, it'll give you a shock, all right, but this is after a year of them missing." And she put it in my hand, I opened up, and here they were. Well, look, I had to sit down, I nearly fainted, So they're all put into the last final drawer, and that drawer is still at home because I've got to be able to activate a place where it's got to go. And because it's in the art gallery down there, I can't do it without someone might be watching, so...
I love the fact you've kept the finest jewels for the innermost, most secret drawer.
Yeah, they're in there. Yeah, they're for the buyer.
That's something that's only for the buyer. That's like the last secret.
Yeah, someone could see a photo of it, but you'd never see where it was, though. I mean, it's in a bank of 5 drawers, and it's the middle one of a bank of 5 drawers. I mean, and the others are made out of ebony and got stone bottoms, ruby and zeolite, lapis lazuli, a real thin slab of lapis lazuli for a solid drawer bottom, and the little face of the drawers veneered in as well. And some of them on the Gold Coast, your rhodonite from the Gold Coast area, one of the drawers has got a bottom of rhodonite in it.
Jeff, it's on the market. The Hannah cabinet, your latest work, is on the market for $1.35 million. Where would you like it to go?
I'd like to see it in a public place. It'd probably look lovely in Government House in Sydney because of the look of the building and what that building looks like in stone. And this cabinet, it'd look good there. But any public place. But of course, if someone personally wanted it, well, I'd let it go. But it would be good to see it in a public place.
Well, the Governor of New South Wales, Professor Marie Bashir, has said, I'm quoting here, she said it reminded her of the finest works of the Italian Renaissance, and she called it a vignette of the excellence of the northern New South Wales region. Maybe she has to put her money where her mouth is. Jeff.
I mean, when Her Excellency unveiled the cabinet, what a delightful person she is. She is so beautiful. I mean, everyone that went near her on the night of the unveiling of the cabinet was just a buzz with her charm, And when you read what she's done in her life, it nearly makes anyone cry from what she's achieved and what she's done with herself, She's truly a lovely person, and she came to the Southern Cross University in Lismore to unveil the cabinet, which is a great gala event, for the town and that. So it's really good.
Perhaps Kevin Rudd could buy it for Therese Rain, or maybe the other way round.
Well, it's on the market.
And what's next once you've sold that? You've said this. Is this going to be the last of your gigantic? I mean, they've gotten bigger and bigger. Yeah,
this is the last big cabinet because physically can't move it around, can't move the moulds around on your own and all that. And before I came up here, I just had a hernia operation. That's just from lifting every So I'm over that now. But, so I'll go back. I'm going to do a smaller one. It'll probably be over 2 years in it, though, to make it. It'll be about 4 foot long. And there'll be a lot of stonework in it too, but it'll actually sit on its own table. And it's going to be called a table cabinet because it sits on a table. And it'll be adorned with not necessarily gems, but a lot more stonework into it, because after seeing what you can do with stone, I can now see what more I can do with it, into that timber,
So you're still learning?
So, oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
Even now?
Even now, yeah.
In your 60s?
Yeah. I mean, our son made a rock saw to be able to cut the big boulders up, the bigger pieces, to do this cabinet. So we had to have one with a 24-inch blade. We've got 2 other saws with 14-inch blades to be able to, because the big one it just spent about 19 days cutting half-inch slabs to get the balustrading done. So one cut, of course, it's so slow to cut a piece of stone, and the slower you cut it, of course, the better the cut and the less finish you've got to do to finish it. But But looking at the gallery now on the cabinet, I can just see where I can use more of that medium.
It's been great to meet you, Jeff. Thank you so much for being my guest in conversation today.
Yeah, thanks very much, Richard.
You've been listening to a podcast of Conversations